I'm Vicky Roy, speech-language pathologist and co-owner of Dynamic Therapy Specialist. So auditory processing can best be described as what the brain is doing with what the ears are hearing. So oftentimes parents will say, well, my child passed their hearing screening. It's like, yes, your child's equipment is working. However, they're having a difficult time processing that information once it gets into the brain. That can look like a difficulty perceiving the differences between sounds that are very, very close. It can also look like having a difficult time filtering out or quote unquote ignoring background noise. And so when I'm in a noisy environment, I have to be able to focus my hearing, my processing on what I want to be listening to and ignore the ruffling, the sounds of the chair moving, the legs moving, people walking down the hall, the air conditioner turning on. As long as my system feels safe and in a regulated state, I should be able to ignore subtle sounds and really focus on the primary source of auditory information that I'm wanting to process at that time. When you have an auditory processing disorder, it might look like that you are having a difficult time perceiving the differences between sounds that are really, really close. So we've all had the instance where someone says something and you go, wait, what did you say? And they say it again, and it's really, really close to what you thought they said, but it's not. It was just a little bit of a difference. That, in an instance, when it happens one time, is probably just an auditory glitch. Your brain just missed something and you heard something that wasn't there. However, if that's happening on a regular basis, then that can be an auditory processing disorder when you're not efficiently and effectively or quickly being able to tell the differences. And so you're gonna have to lean forward. You're gonna wanna squint your eyes, although it's not gonna help you to process sound. But when we are really focusing on what someone is saying, we tend to lean in, we tend to squint our eyes, we tend to focus really hard. Think about also if you've ever had a cell phone call where the connection is good enough, maybe it's an important call, you've been waiting all day for it, but now you're not hearing everything that's being said, so you're having to really focus. You might want to turn the radio down or get the kids to be quiet because you really need all of your energy because you're not efficiently processing or hearing. In that instance, if it's a bad cell phone call, you're probably not actually hearing all of the sounds, and that can be very similar to what it's like to have an auditory processing disorder and to be living with that. It is about fatigue, it is about inefficiencies, really having to focus on what you're saying. Now, the good news is that is something that can be remediated. It can be fixed with practice, with the brain's ability to reorganize that system and to be able to more efficiently hear the differences quicker and in a more efficient way. And so at DTS, one of the things that we specialize in is auditory processing. We are one of the only clinics, or perhaps even the only clinic, in Baton Rouge that has audiologists on staff that specialize in auditory processing intervention. Not just the diagnosis, the evaluation process, but in the intervention. Our entire team specializes in auditory processing therapy, where we are able to look at the way that your child's system is processing sound and be able to put together an intervention plan that will improve that ability and be able to help your child to better process in noisy environments, when they are under stress, like during tests or in school, when there are a lot of other competing sounds. Parents oftentimes ask, well, what causes auditory processing disorders? And of course, like most things, there can always be a genetic or hereditary component. You can have a family history of a weak auditory system, similar to you have a family history of slow runners, or maybe you have a family history of scoliosis in your family. So we definitely can have this genetic component where there's a family history. You can also have a history of ear infections. And so although we know this is not causal, there is a strong correlation. We see a lot of kids who have a history of ear infections who then later come in 5, 6, 7 and are having auditory processing difficulties. Some type of illness or injury can also cause an auditory processing disorder. I do think that oftentimes there is a overlap in the symptoms that we will see for children who have an auditory processing disorder and children who have attention deficit, some type of ADHD, ADD diagnosis. It is possible to have both at the same time. You can absolutely truly have ADHD, truly have an attention disorder, but you can also have an inefficient auditory processing system, which will make you look like you're struggling with focus and attention, which might make you look like you're having attention difficulties, because the symptoms look very, very similar. When your brain is having to work really hard to process sound, then you are going to be more likely to fatigue. Your system is going to get tired sooner than other students in the classroom, other peers, and you are going to do one of two things. You are either going to shut down, and so those are the kids that are going to look like they're dazing off, the lights are on but nobody's home, or alternatively, you can start looking very hyper, start looking like you're having focus and attention issues. You will, in an effort to keep your system going, to really keep pushing that adrenaline and cortisol, we can look ADHD. Doesn't mean that we don't necessarily have co-occurring disorders. Before we decide that this is the diagnosis, this is also something that we want to be looking at. So if your child is struggling with their auditory processing, perhaps you're noticing that in noisy environments, they are struggling to really pay attention. Maybe they're having difficulty in the classroom. Maybe they're saying huh or what a lot, asking you to repeat things or having the teacher to repeat things. One of the things that you can do is you can go onto our website and you can complete our auditory processing screener. Another thing, at DTS, we have audiologists on staff who specialize in auditory processing, as well as our entire team of speech language pathologists. And we are able to complete a comprehensive auditory processing evaluation, which would allow us to be able to objectively measure your child's auditory processing skills and to create a plan for remediation in order to be able to systematically improve that system.